Hi, my name is Kelly, and this is my story. So it started back in my sophomore year in high school. I was dating a very well-known football player at the time, and I had known him since elementary school, and I always had a thing for him, and then I finally started dating him. He wasn't the guy that I thought he was. He was very manipulative. He was cheating on me. We caught him. He still denied it. It just put me in a bad place, and things he would say to me during our relationship kind of put me in a really bad place. So it kind of started my eating problems. At that time, I wouldn't necessarily call it an eating disorder, but it was definitely, I had eating problems. I was skipping meals, losing weight, skipping meals, wouldn't keep anything down if I did eat, and my friend found my food journal and read what was in there, and she caught what was happening before that, and so she basically helped me snap out of it, if that makes sense. Kind of like get back on track and like, this is better, you're better than this kind of thing, like before it was an actual problem. That was my junior year that started. The relationship was sophomore year, that was my junior year. I really started going into the downward spiral. Then the remaining part of junior year and my senior year, I was totally fine, had no issues eating whatsoever. God knows I didn't have any issues. About almost a year after I graduated high school, I met this guy in March of 2011 who became my first love and whole 9 yards. And he turned out to be very much like my sophomore year boyfriend. He kind of just put ideas back into my head without really realizing it, I don't think. He would say, oh, I like when a girl has this on her, I like when a girl looks like this, and etc, etc. And so one thing led to another, and it very much put me back into that downward spiral. It was 10 times worse than what it was my junior year in high school, and I went from being like 118, 120, at my very worst I was like 80, high 80s. It would very much be considered anorexia at that point, which was a huge thing. Obviously it was causing a lot of problems. Like, I stopped going to school, I would skip classes because I would just lay in bed with him because I didn't have the energy to get up. And I obviously was super depressed because as much as you think that's going to make you feel happy being that skinny, it makes you feel worse, but you don't really realize it at the time. Come January 14th of 2012, he basically gave me the ultimatum of either you recover, get help, and start recovering, or I'm going to leave you. And being that I wanted to marry this guy and I loved him, we almost did get married at one point, I chose obviously recovery. I was doing good for not getting professional help. I was like, I can just do it by myself, like I got this, I don't need help, as I was way too stubborn. I started just trying to eat right, went to got resources myself, and the website Tumblr helped me a lot. I finally was able to start trying to get back to normal, and it was only lasted a week before he was like, you know what, we're done. That night was bad. We had went out to dinner with his grandparents who wanted to take me out to celebrate a victory that I had with my photography, and I was a finalist in a worldwide contest, so I was being published, so they wanted to take me out to celebrate. So the four of us went out, and everything went good that night. I was leaving, and him and I got into a play fight, and I didn't say I love you back to him when I left, but I was joking around, didn't think anything of it. He texted me when I got home. When I texted him that I was home, he texted me back saying, we're done, I want to break up, and basically said, it's just not working. You're too skinny, it's not working, this isn't fair, blah, 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 and then turned it around and making it seem like he was the good person, saying it's not fair for you, I'm not the right person for you, blah, blah, blah. So it kind of just put me in a place where okay, you're the only reason I recovered. Do I go back to how I was and go back in my downward spiral, which I wanted to, or do I keep recovering and get my life back, which I also wanted? I realized I didn't want to live my life like that. I wanted to see life, what life had to offer, and I wanted to be able to be lived for what God has made for me, and I knew dying from my eating disorder was not what He wanted me to do. So I ultimately chose to continue with recovery and be able to live a life that I've always imagined, and be able to one day provide kids for my parents and make them grandparents that they've always wanted. It took a lot. Like I said, again, I didn't really get professional help. Like, my doctors obviously knew kind of what was going on, just because when I would go for doctor's appointments, I was so tiny. I didn't necessarily need their help, want their help, and so I did everything by myself. Yeah, it started January 14th of 2012, and it's now August 26th of 2017, so going on 6 years now, doing pretty good. But I just learned a lot about myself in the last 5, almost 6 years. Learned that I'm more determined than anyone I've ever met. I don't quit easily as much as I wanted to in the last 5 years. Trust me, there were some times where I didn't even want to live anymore because I was just so done with everything. It just made me realize that this life is more than I can ever imagine, and I need to fight for it if I want it, and nothing's impossible. I definitely learned more about myself when I decided to move almost 3,000 miles away from home at the beginning of this year, which was a huge thing too, because now I'm living by myself because I'm alone on a farm out here in the middle of nowhere, North Carolina. But it's definitely, again, taught me that I'm so much stronger than I ever thought I was. I thought I was the weakest person when I was suffering with my anorexia. I thought I was the weakest person there ever was. I don't know how else to explain it. Like, then again, you have to be strong to have an eating disorder as well, if that makes any sort of sense. That might be the kind of messed up parts of my brain still thinking that. Living in North Carolina has definitely taught me that you're really only accountable for yourself, and I never really thought I would be able to be that way. I have really bad anxiety, and I thought living alone would be an issue too, because I've been through a couple things, one of them being a break-in when I was home alone house sitting for a friend, and that alone kind of messed me up. I never wanted to be home alone, and I would freak out with any little noise, and I thought I would never be able to live alone, like there's no way. But now I'm here 7 months later, and I'm living alone, and I'm loving life, and I have my own dog, and none of that would have been possible if it wasn't for my crappy ex-boyfriend. But at the same time, as bad as it was, I wouldn't change it, because after he went out of my life, I guess he bettered my life. I really hope that, as brief as this was, that my story can help others and realize that they're not alone and there are resources for them. And I hope that I'm able to stand here today and inspire others that I went from being 120 to 80 something pounds, and now I'm back up to 120 and I've never been happier with myself. So I really hope that can really inspire people to see that, like, it's possible to be happy again and to reach out and get help and accept it and leave that part of your life behind, if that makes sense. And that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.